Earlier on LBC, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, appealed for all of us to just stay at home tonight.
Well, listen, the easiest way to save lives and the way you can make a contribution towards helping the NHS who are stretched at the moment is to stay at home. Celebrate in the new year with your family you live with and your support bubble. Don't think that you leaving your home is going to in any way change the course of your personal life, except in a negative way. You could either catch the virus, you could pass it on to somebody else, or you'll be caught by the police and dealt with because you're breaking the law. And so my message to all LBC listeners is to stay at home. And by the way, you can turn on the TV and watch a great show tonight, which will look at some of the defining moments of the year, but also celebrate with hope as we go into 2021.
That was the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Lots of suggestions about what to watch on Netflix. Bridgerton, very, very popular at the moment. I'm a bit out of date. I watched, I can't say the full title because it's a bit rude, but it's Don't with Cats. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard of it. My God, what a twist in that show. It totally blew my mind. I was expecting it to be one thing and it just went way off. Anyway, that's for something to watch tonight. Now, on a far more serious note, when Sheila was talking on LBC earlier today, we were talking about what to do on New Year's Eve, what you shouldn't do, and why it's important not to do that. Well, have a listen to this. This is an amazing phone call from the intensive care doctor who was called Jack.
And really, it is pretty bad. I did ring it back in May. I spoke to Tom Swarbrick, March, when this all kicked off the first time. And I said then that we were facing a tsunami. And in fact, that's what, I think 3 days later we locked down and, we all know what happened after that. And I'm saying the same thing is now happening again. Except this time it's worse because...
With you just after this, Dr. Pankania.
Well, it's not just that it's winter.
Thank you for your time,
sir. In March, none of the medical staff had COVID. None of the medical staff were self-isolating. None of their kids had COVID and they had to self-isolate. So we're way down on staff. I'd say a third are off at any one time. So... Anyway, this New Year's Eve, I'm going to go to bed early because I'm on tomorrow. I was on all over Christmas. We're all knackered. And I just want to ask a question, actually, because I've been thinking about ringing in again. But the thing that made me ring you is I went to get petrol, and I came out of the petrol station, and as I was walking out, a guy ran in not wearing a mask. Mm. And all I want to do, really, is just ask a question. Now, every single person that is lying on a ventilator in my ICU, by the way, a couple of days ago, me and a colleague of mine said the last rites of somebody because their religious priest, or I'm not going to say what the religion was, but they couldn't come into the hospital to do it. So one of my colleagues and I did it. And the patients aren't old, I'm in my 50s, and a lot of them are younger than me. I've already lost colleagues, Anyway, the question I want to ask of the guy who ran in without his mask on, and everyone who's in my ITU has been infected by somebody. That guy ran in, there were 3 or 4 other people in there, How does he know that he hasn't killed somebody, he's not going to kill that person that he breathed over? And what is the point? The question I want to ask him is, what is the point of us going in and day after day after day after day facing this night if he can't put a mask on? Why? What is the point of us carrying on with it?
Got a big response. That was an intensive care doctor called Jack. So, the message is fairly clear and it has been throughout. But tonight, what are you doing and what would you normally be doing? Let's speak to Dr. Pankania, who often a guest on LBC. We're delighted to have him again. Senior clinical lecturer in public health medicine at Exeter Medical School. I suppose the message is fairly obvious and there isn't much open. So there's not much else to do apart from sit at home, is there?
No, we should spend that time reflecting on what we could have done better and what we will do better in 2021. The very important, very crucial message is that even myself, I was initially skeptical about how infectious the new variant is. But having spent many hours reading about it, I would now concur that yes, this new variant is more infectious. What that means is it will generate more cases, and more cases equals Jack and other fellow colleagues in hospitals will receive more patients. And of those patients received, more of them will unfortunately die.
Tell us a little bit more about this new variant as you've been reading up on it.
So these viruses do mutate, and they usually mutate in a negative direction, meaning they become less innocuous. In this case, it is not more severe disease causing. Good. Unfortunately, it is more infectious. In other words, a person who is infected releases a lot more of these virus particles, and because they release a lot more of them, if you are in close proximity to them, not wearing your mask as discussed just now, and potentially exposed to their infection, it is easier for you to get infected, especially in the winter months when we are indoors in closed spaces.
What advice would you give to people, maybe people who are slightly younger, don't think that the virus affects them too badly, they won't get that ill, who are planning to have not maybe a massive shindig, but just a small get-together? What would be your advice?
There's two pieces of advice for them. Don't kid yourself that this will not affect you, because we are now seeing hospital ITUs filling up with younger people, ill, critically ill. Second point, even if you may not get ill, you are potentially likely to infect your parents or your grandparents. And third point, even if you survive, and most will survive, so I mustn't scare people, some of you will go on to have what we call a long COVID syndrome. And it is in your interest. You've got many, many decades worth of life left. Live it properly and protect yourself. Don't get infected. Don't infect others.
Bharat, as always, a pleasure. Happy New Year. Thank you very much
Happy
for
New
talking
Year.
to us. Dr. Bharat Payne.
Thanks ever so much for that, Bharat. Have a lovely evening. Happy New Year.
Exeter
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Medical School. So you've heard the figures, over 55, almost